Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming. My name's Toby and I'm from the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, and today we have a panel of young people from around the world here to make their call for climate action. So I'll be going first. So hi everyone, my name is Toby Thorpe. I'm 17 from Tasmania in Australia and I'm a proud climate activist. I'm speaking here today with frustration because I'm frustrated with my political leaders for their lack of action on climate change. I'm speaking here today in solidarity with my generational peers. Young people across the globe are fed up with political leaders for not taking action on climate change, locking our futures in a coffin. The injustices of climate change are clear to young people here at COP24 in Katowice, Poland. Climate change isn't just an environmental issue, but it's a justice issue. People and places are dying right now. They're being swooped up by greedy fossil fuel corporations, and they're being taken from those that need it the most. For almost 2 weeks now, we've been hearing on the progress of negotiations, but we all know that's not enough. The realisation of this crisis we are in right now is not being accepted by those in power, and we as young people are being left out of the decision-making processes. But we are fighting back, not just here, but across the world. We are seeing thousands of young people across the world calling for more climate action. School strikes in Australia, student movements in the US, Greta Thunberg, just to name a few of the many examples. Here today, I'd like to tell you about the Adani mine, the coal mine that has young people outraged in Australia, the coal mine that puts my future on the line, the coal mine that is thrashing native titles, the coal mine that gives us the opportunity to show that people power will win, and the coal mine that is mobilising thousands to stand up for what they believe in. This isn't just a coal mine though. It's the biggest proposed coal project in Australia and the biggest of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere. It's one of the biggest environmental issues in the country right now, and it has everyone's attention, including young people. This mine puts future generations, First Nation lands, and the water on the line. If the Adani mine goes ahead, billions of litres of water will be taken by the mega coal mine. This means less water for drinking and wetlands, less water for our farmers, which are already drought ravaged. Once these fragile water sources are gone, they cannot be returned or restored. The impacts of this will be on my generation, my children's generation, and my great-grandchildren's generation. Water is life. Not just water is at stake. People's health, Indigenous lands, the Great Barrier Reef and our future are at risk. But the most appalling thing about this project is that my government is supporting it. So right now, I'm calling on our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, the Opposition Leader, Bill Shorten, to stop politicising this issue and accept it as a threat to our future and our descendants' future. I'm calling on you today, all the way from COP24 in Poland, as a young Tasmanian from Australia's southernmost municipality, at the complete other end of the country to where this project is happening, to stop Adani's mine and to take action on climate change. Action means stopping this mine. It means putting people over profit and ethics over greed. It doesn't just mean having a robust Paris rulebook. If you're a young person listening to me right now anywhere across the world, I call on you to join me. Join me in this fight, the fight of our time. Join me in making the world a better place and painting a vision of a future that we all want. One that is fair, just, equal, and powered by 100% renewable energy. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Regan Williams and I'm 18 years old. This is my second year at the COP with a student activism group called Green Generation. We use art, education, and activism to promote climate justice, and we envision a new generation of people connected to the earth and each other. I would like to start with a story. I wish it was a happier one. He was 17. We had been friends at sports camp together when we were just 9 years old. Little did I know that at 9, my friend had already lived half of his young life. My friend died in the mudslides that impacted my community of Santa Barbara, California earlier this year. California had been in a state of extreme drought for over 6 years by the time the wildfires once again ravaged the region, destroying many homes and taking many lives. However, people expected fires, though they seemed to be more than usual and more destructive than remembered. The concern had not yet peaked. Then came the rain. Unexpected, unprecedented, and deadly, the rain created mudslides that moved massive boulders down mountains and mud that covered freeways up to the overpasses. My coastal community became unrecognizable. My friend was swept away by the mud while he slept. So was his dad. I tell you all of this to make this COP a little more real. A little less about pavilions and fancy dinners, a little more about people and family and friends, about your sons and your daughters and their lives and futures. Make no mistake, we know that natural disasters such as the one I described above are exacerbated by anthropogenic climate change. We also know who has the power to mitigate them. 5 of California's worst ever fires have happened in the last year. My friend's story is just one tragic example of young people paying the price for the failure of the generations before them to stop climate injustice in its tracks. Many hear these stories and feel sorry for the people affected, but they are desensitized by the same stories over and over again. Stories from all corners of the globe. Though many decisions about policy, politics, and petty word choice are made behind closed doors, we as youth have a large amount of potential power. I say potential because although many of us are marching and striking and speaking, it should not be many of us, it should be all. Because unless we use collective action as our main strategy, corporations, governments, and fossil fuel industry leaders will continue to use money to buy their way out of responsibility. My president, Donald J. Trump, is a wonderful example of how empathy, equality, and injustice or justice take a backseat to political gain, profits, and privilege when it comes to environmental, social, and economic issues. We as youth joined other activists to stand up and say, "Shame on you," to the Trump administration panel promoting coal and fossil fuels that took place here at the COP24 a few days ago. The demonstration was a wonderful example of the shared vision that unites every young activist. A vision that is based on inclusivity and people power, and that is hell-bent on giving a voice to the most marginalized, the most vulnerable, and the most affected by injustice in all forms. We youth call on the UNFCCC to ensure a more inclusive process in these negotiations. Not just for us youth, but for other marginalized populations as well. Women, as many of you know, are on the front lines of the climate crisis. The intersections of gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, and religion are inseparable from the causes and ultimately solutions of climate change. It is an outrage to be in some of the rooms at this conference and others like it and see only men, mainly only white men, fill panel seats. It is an outrage that there is just one day, Gender Day, that seems to highlight the realities of what it means to be a woman in the shadow of climate change. Similarly, we have Youth and Future Generations Day here at COP on the same day as Business and Industry Day. When we asked to participate and share our stories, we were told to treat our performance as if we were celebrating a birthday, a celebration, rather than a call for action. We, along with many other activists, have also been told that we cannot call out any corporations at COP. We've had to modify our language and change our performance to exclude names such as PepsiCo for continuing to deforest through their use of conflict palm oil. In truth, corporations and governments need to be called out because there are some deadly consequences to inaction, compromise, and stagnation when nations are making climate change commitments. My government read in the IPCC report that we have 12 years to change or face dire consequences. And this science was not welcomed. It was noted. There's something fundamentally broken in the hearts and minds of world leaders who read the IPCC report and just note it. Our message to the parties at COP is this: we want you to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, because right now, it's on ours. We know you have children who will grow up in this world that you influence. I call on the United States government to put money back into the Green Climate Fund to bridge the gap of injustice that the U.S. has been so key in creating. And as this COP comes to a close, we know that the work isn't over. Young people across the world will keep fighting, keep demanding that you change. Keep demanding justice and empathy and recognition of basic human rights. And finally, I am so grateful for the many inspiring and incredible youth activists around the world. I encourage everyone to take part in the world-changing work being done. Join Greta Thunberg in striking for climate this Friday. Educate yourself on what is happening behind closed doors. Enough is enough. The fact that you are here, the fact that you are watching us speak right now, already means you are part of the youth rising to create a green generation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is William Vovers. I'm an 18-year-old Australian Indonesian. I attend Green School, an alternative school in Bali, Indonesia. I am also a student activist working alongside Green Generation. I have been asked to represent the Dayak Kenya or Omalung tribe from Satulang, a village in East Kalimantan. The Dayak Kenya in the area of Malinau and Satulang practice the tradition of Tanah Olen, or forbidden land. Their Tanah Olen is 150 million years old and has many plants that do not exist in other areas of Borneo. It is forbidden to log or hunt in the Tanah Olen without express permission of the village leaders. These village elders are very confident in their ability and the next generation's ability to protect their sacred lands. Unfortunately, not all indigenous people in Indonesia feel the same sense of confidence. While the past decade has held some amazing achievements for the land rights of indigenous Indonesians, the problem with legislation in Indonesia is that what the government decrees is often not enforced. Such is the case with the Dayak Meratus in the Meratus Mountains, who are the last district in southern Kalimantan who remain free of palm oil corporations and mining companies. The central government has given away their traditional lands without notification to the district heads and the people who live there. They have given their sacred lands to an Australian gold mining company and an Indonesian coal mining company. Rusli, a middle-aged farmer in the area, said this in an interview with Mongabay magazine. If we accept their compensation, even if 1 billion rupiah for one family, how far does that go? We want to continue our way of life, and our way of life is more sustainable than money. One thing that we can learn from the Dayak Meratus, who are still struggling today, is that short-term economic gain is not worth long-term destruction. While this may seem obvious, it is a piece of advice that isn't really followed by many of the countries and companies most responsible for the climate change crisis. Even at this COP24, we see the industry's influence, the major decisions that will affect us for generations to come. We must ask ourselves what is really important. Economic analysis shows that familial wealth will only last for 3 generations. The Dayak Meratus and the Kenya understand that the forests and ancestral lands will last for millions of years and benefit not just one family, but the whole community. While the Dayak are considered to be primitive because they don't have electricity or their floors are dirt, their way of thinking in terms of sustainability and the benefit of the community is far more advanced than many leaders here at the COP. The Dayak do not protect the world's second largest rainforest so that they can have greater carbon storage and sequestration. The Dayak do it because they recognize that we are part of the forest and we are part of nature. They do not protect their forest because carbon creditors want to allow big industries to continue polluting. It is their way of life. We, Homo sapiens, are part of this family of great apes. Many of our family, of our brothers and sisters, will go extinct if we do not learn to change our ways. The Indonesian government under President Jokowi is continuing to expand coal power in Indonesia, creating even more dependence on this technology that needs to become part of the past. 3 years ago, China Hudan Corporation built a coal power plant in Celukan Bawang, North Bali. Now, the Balinese in the area are attempting to stop their expansion to protect their homes. These foreign companies are shipping their dirty energy to Indonesia to get around the law and legislation of their own countries. Our people are living with their air pollution and their environmental damage. New coal plants being built near Jakarta, funded by Korean banks, will affect the health of 30 million Indonesian people. The main islands of Java, Bali, and Sumatra will continue to require more and more power as time goes on. We Indonesians must break this trend of coal dependency before it damages our ability to achieve our emission targets. We cannot follow the path of the already developed nations and their profiteering off of fossil fuels. We also cannot allow our forests to be cut down for the production of palm oil or pulp, or to become part of a carbon credit scheme to allow companies to continue polluting. We must learn from the Dayak Kenya and put our sustainability over the economic interests of our mining and palm oil companies. We must learn from the Meratus and use our people power to stand in the way of polluters. We must learn from the Balinese in Celukan Bawang, who put their environment over potential jobs in the coal industry. We must end the foreign influence and resist the coal colonialism plaguing our lands. We must learn and we must change, now more than ever. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sivendra MIchael, can be called Michael as well, and I'm from Fiji. And I'm so honored to be here to share my frustration as well amongst the youths present amongst us. Colleagues, before I start, I would like to share a story of why I'm here at COP24, and this is also my third COP. I came to COP23 on urgency because on the 16th of February 2016, my family was one of those families that was displaced from TC Winston. Displaced in the sense where I could not know where they were. I received a call at 4:32 a.m. on the 17th of February from the New Zealand government asking if I had made contact with my family. You do not want to know what I was going through at that very moment, and I would not want you to ever be in that situation. After multiple attempts calling evacuation centers, I had made no contact, so I decided to urge and ask the government of New Zealand to fly me home. On this quest, I searched multiple evacuation centers to try and find my families. 2 of my nieces, plus my nephew, along with my brother, was in one evacuation center, while my sister-in-law was in an evacuation center 210 kilometers away from it where the cyclone had originally struck. This is how far they had to run for their own lives. And this is not just one example. There is many other instances where people of our communities are faced by threats of climate change and their livelihoods every day. I just came to COP24 and this year to share the stories of the people of Itetoko and Vatua, where every weekend rainfall causes floods to the rooftop level. No furniture in the house, no food to eat, all crops dead. What do they rely on? They rely on recreating a life out of just donations. Can you experience this life? Would you ever be able to live like that? On every weekend rainfalls where floods level reach your rooftop. This is no joke. And these are just tragic examples of the many impacts climate change has had on the people of the Pacific. And if we continue with the current rate of emissions, pollutions, and injustices, then the people of the Pacific would not have a place to call home. And still, our neighbors, Australia, they don't even realize this as they push forward to opening the largest coal mine in the Pacific, Adani. Do you really feel that downsizing the project is an option? Do you feel that it would have reduced impacts on the people of the Pacific? I don't think so. Shame on you, Australian government, for providing finances on educating people of the Pacific through your AusAid scholarships on smart climate investments and climate policies, and yet you're considering to open the largest coal mine in the Pacific, which will daunt us. Why do we have to march? Why do we have to make noises and make loud statements so that this project can be stopped? Is our voices not being heard, or are you just being negligent? So I call on all the youths that are present here today to join us and urge our leaders to fulfill their commitments that they have made towards reducing carbon emissions, towards meeting the 1.5-degree goal. This is so important to us, as we will wake up one day to call no place a home. Climate change is the largest threat to humankind, and we know that. Our leaders also know that. And I urge leaders to stand in solidarity and make decisions that does not support use of fossil fuels and coal mines. It's not as simple as it speaks. It takes a lot of political will. But we know that the Pacific leaders in solidarity can make this movement. We cannot continue this petty talk, as enough is enough. And I urge this by sitting in the negotiations over the last 2 weeks and listening to them, contemplating over text, over things that practitioners would not understand because the language is so complex. As the negotiations intensify, I want to remind our Pacific leaders that we do not have much time. So enough is enough. And please, I urge you to listen to us youths. Lastly, to all the people and the youths around the world that are listening to me right now, and to the inspiring youths that are present amongst us, I applaud you. I put my hats off to you, and I commend you for your great work. And I urge you to do not stop. Keep pushing. If you have to be like Gretchen, be like her. Because if it takes that to change their decisions, and if it takes that to change them from to hear us, then we should do that. We should fight for our future, because it is our future and our children's future. Join us in making this world a better place. Thank you.
So that concludes all our statements, and we can open the floor to questions. So if anyone has a question, put your hand up. Yeah.
Cezary Kłosowicz, Go Against the Tide TV. Do you really think that reducing the carbon emission will stop the natural disasters or make them less deadly?
So decarbonizing is just one option, I believe, and yes, it may have a reduced impact on the intensity of natural disasters, and as the UN language is currently trying to finalize, they do not even know how to define natural disasters per se. So yes, to answer your questions, I feel personally that decarbonizing would have a reduced impact on the intensity of natural disasters, but this is just one of the many things that we can do.
Heine Benking, I'm deeply moved from your personal story, Sivendra, because I think this is how we can communicate contagiously. And I must tell you, and maybe it's some learning for you to follow up, that I was, when Chernobyl happened, the guy who made all the maps with the radioactivity. And then the radioactivity got higher and higher, and they have been throwing us out when even the people wanted to see the map. My experience, I mean, this is 30 years ago, is we have to see how we communicate. They communicate with numbers, with statistics, with images, with maps. And there are approaches to think that together. And my question is, do you know that the United Nations Democracy Fund, with the World Future Studies Federation, and with the Future Center in Cyprus in peacemaking projects in Cyprus, trying to find ways to negotiate? Because when you have enemies, what can you do? You don't have a meaning. Or when you have a word, you have another idea about it. So these projects on multi-track diplomacy and peacemaking, and really checking when they give you a number, is a number harmonized or is it just for one silo? So I think you as youth have a chance to go beyond this demagogy. Charlatan, it means when you don't have the same content. So thank you for your effort, and we spread transformative, positive news. Maybe we should really gain more momentum, and not only on the CAP. We have to do it in ECOSOC. And there's a grand challenges ECOSOC group, a Global Commons Alliance it's called, to really help you to go out of the silo of this COP or this convention. You have to really solve a problem by stepping back. And this approach, by panning and zooming, I think this mental locability, this is actually what you would strive for, and not compromise when they tell you we have numbers here. Data have to be harmonized and have to be in context. What they're doing, it's just numbers out of context, and they are meaningless, same like values. So thank you, I didn't want to make another talk.
I think we have time for one more quick question, if anyone would like it. Yep, right up the back. So how we come together? So obviously we're from different parts of the world. We're actually connected, three of us are connected through education. So Huonville High School, my high school in Tasmania, Australia, is actually kind of partnered with the Green School in Bali, which Regan and William are students at, from winning the Zayed Sustainability Prize in 2017. So we've sort of been collaborating since January 2017, and that's how we come together. And then through the Youngo network, we reached out and found our Fiji friend here to speak today, because we think that it's important for those on the front line to speak at panels like this. So yeah, that's the origin of where we come from. Cool. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Our time's up, but we can stay about for questions outside if you like. So thank you.
Thank you.